Hey gang. Okay, so you've gotten into SketchUp, you've played around with it a little bit. It's now time to try to start to design something. So when you open it up, you just go to SketchUp Online and you can just click the button that says, start creating or start making, start designing. And you come up to this page right here. And the neat thing here is I love using a mouse when I'm doing SketchUp because if you use your scroll button, you scroll in and you scroll out. But the neat thing about that center scroll button is if you click it and move your mouse around, you get that beautiful orbital tool that kind of zooms you all around the place. And then if you hit the shift button and then do the exact same thing, click that circular thing, instead of scrolling around, you're just kind of pushing and pulling around. So that's just a really easy way. It took me forever to figure out like how to navigate around this program and how to figure the simple things out and just look at my piece. And then once I learned that, it's like, oh, okay, that makes things so much easier. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about today is how to make a leg in SketchUp, all right? So if you're just making a super basic leg, I would come here to the rectangle tool, that very first rectangle tool, and I would build myself a rectangle like this. And then I would use this push-pull tool. I would click that push-pull tool, and I would come over to my leg, and I would pull it out a little bit, and boom. There we have a beautiful, oh, I made it way too wide, so I should probably push it back a little bit. Now we have a beautiful leg. But it's just basic and square and rectangular. And as we know, we want it maybe to look a little bit prettier than that. So I'm going to hit Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, and that steps backwards. You can also step backwards up here, just go step back. And that's one way to take care of it. So we're going to do this a little bit differently because our goal is to make a more beautiful tapered leg. And it took me a while to figure that one out as well. But what I want to do is I want to start with the rectangle tool and I want to make a small little square. And I can make it as square as I want, but you don't need to worry about it. As long as it's a blue square. And you can see that when you're hanging out, you got to look at it like from a bird's point of view. And when you make a square like that, it will make a blue square, which means you're perfectly on the ground. The dimensions here, now if you don't touch anything, you'll be able to type in your dimensions. You want to hit 3/4 and then hit the inches. And then hit a comma and hit 3/4 and then hit the inches button again. And when you hit enter, what that does is that changes the shape of your square that you made to 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch. Now that does seem tiny, and that's because it's tiny. We wanted a really small little leg. So we now have the bottom of our leg that's touching the floor. So what we're going to do is I'm going to orbit around, so I'm like this. I'm going to come to my line tool. And I'm going to put this line tool at this closest corner I have, the endpoint closest to me. And I'm going to click it once, and then I'm going to go upwards. Now you got to be careful, make sure that your line is blue, because that means you're going straight up. It says on the blue axis. And you can just click again. Now once again, if you don't try to make another line or anything else, you can type in the measurement you want. And here we know that we want this line to be 20 space and 1/4 inches, 20 1/4 inches, and then hit enter, and you can see that my line is now 20 1/4 inches. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to measure down. So this is the height of my leg. Now these are a little bit more confusing because it is a tapered leg. So what I want to try to do is I just want to take my measuring tool, and my measuring tool is down here, and I want to start at the top, and I want to measure down 2 inches. So sometimes you get lucky and oh, look at that, I just got lucky and it says 2 inches, and I'm going to click. But if you don't get lucky, just click anywhere and type in it over here 2 inches, just like we did with the last thing, and you'll see that it will be 2 inches long. Okay, so now we have a nice little spot of measurement right at 2 inches, and I'm going to twirl around here. Now this is where it gets a little bit weird. The very top, we want to make another line here. The very bottom of the leg is only 3/4, but because we're tapering out, the top of the leg is going to be 1.25 inches wide. So we want to click on this top endpoint and come along. Make sure that your line is red like mine is so that you're lined up. And you want to click and make sure that line's red. And it's okay, that's way too long, but what we're going to do is we're going to type in 1 space and then 1 divided by 4 inches, and now we know that that is 1 1/4. Then you're going to come down to the notch right here. Now see, this drives me nuts when it does that. You're going to click escape to get out of that. And we're going to come to this notch, and we're going to click it again, and we're going to go make sure that it's a red line again. We're going to click, and once again, we're going to do 1 space 3 divided by 4 inches. Enter. And it didn't work because nothing ever goes my way in SketchUp. So let's do Control Z, and let's try that one more time. We're going to click here and make sure we have a red line. And we're going to click, and we're going to say 1 space 1 divided by 4 inches, and hope that it works. And it did work that time. Thank goodness. Okay, so we're doing okay here. Now we're just going to connect that endpoint with that endpoint, and you can see once it recognizes that you have a shape, it automatically starts filling things in. Now we're going to connect this endpoint all the way down, and we're going to try to match it up with that endpoint there, and we can see that we're starting to create a tapered leg. Now it's very two-dimensional though. You can see that it's two-dimensional here. So what we're going to do is we're going to come around, and come all the way around here, and we're going to make this, we're going to go out this way, and we do want it to be a green line this time. We're going to click, and once again we want 1 space 1 divided by 4 inches, and we're going to click enter. Oh, I made a second line there, and that's bad. So let's try to back that up a little bit. SketchUp's a very difficult tool to use sometimes. So we start here, we're going to come out, we're going to be green, we're going to click again, then we're going to go 1 space 1 divided by 4 inches. We're going to click enter. So there it is. There's our 1 1/4 inches again. All right, so now we're going to scroll out a little bit. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to click. We're going to come out on the green line, and we're going to say, oh, and this one already knew, it was kind of intuitive that we wanted 1 1/4 inches, so it just stopped. And then we're going to click that. That means we have a nice, perfect shape. And then we're going to go endpoint, and we're going to get down here to this endpoint. Boom! And now we're starting to look really good here. We got an outside of a leg. So we're going to come to this side. I'm going to click on this endpoint. I'm going to click. I'm going to make sure that it's green. I'm going to click. I'm going to do the same thing up here. I'm going to click. Click. And now I have another shape. I'm going to make sure. Now see, this happens all the time in SketchUp. That got messed up, and it did something that I did not want it to do. So I'm going to have to Control Z, kind of step backwards a little bit and say, okay, let's see. Let me think about what went wrong. All right, I have an idea. I'm going to try using my push-pull tool, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to grab this guy, and I'm going to push it back until I end up on that face. And that's a little bit easier way to do what I wanted to do just then. And now what I'm going to do is all I have to do now is take this pencil, connect this endpoint with the endpoint that I just can't see. I'm so close. So I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to have to zoom out just a little bit and try that one more time. I want this endpoint, and I'm going to zoom it down to this one right there. And now, as you can see, I have a beautiful tapered leg. And for some reason it has an open box. Hopefully yours doesn't have an open box right here. But if it does, that's okay. We'll fix it. But there's a tapered leg. So hopefully you were able to build a tapered leg that has these measurements, just like mine. We're going to take off from here, and we're going to start copying that leg, build 4 of them, and then we're going to see if we can add the rest of the table in. So best of luck to you, and I hope it went well.